Joined this morning by the Secretary of State for Wales, Simon Hart. Mr Hart, thank you for joining us on the programme. It's lovely to see you again. Let's talk about that to start with, should we? Why Rwanda?
Well, I think the first thing is we have to deal with this problem. We have a very good relationship with Rwanda. It's an up-and-coming economy. It's got a very good record with migrants in this particular issue, and it's an arrangement which I think suits both countries very well and provides the best opportunities for economic migrants, for those who have been in the forefront of this particular appalling problem for so long now. And I think that this arrangement is it has the potential to be a really good step forward and a really humane step forward.
But the President of Rwanda has been accused of human rights abuses on more than one occasion.
That is true, but that doesn't alter the fact that their reputation, as far as migrants are concerned, and their economic progress is phenomenal. So I don't think we want to sort of write this off now. It's a scheme it's a start of a scheme. We want to work with the Refugee Council, other charities, try and make it work. But the fact is, at the moment, the arrangement, pretty well everybody who observes what we see on telly with the problem with the channel and the lives that have been lost, the activities of the criminal gangs, which everybody accepts is not a situation we can persist with in any shape or form. This has the potential, I think, to be a really groundbreaking way forward, which provides a humane outcome for the victims in question, which is the most important priority, and also make sure that we honour what we committed to do several years ago, which you've held us to account on, which is to resolve this problem as far as the UK is concerned. So, I'd say this is the beginning of a process. We have to work with the charitable sector to get it to work.
Okay.
But I think it would be wrong to write it off.
But it is a country that oversaw genocide of 1 million people in 100 days.
Well,
in our lifetimes, in my son's lifetime.
Absolutely, but if we adopt that attitude, then we will never be able to make progress with it. Rwanda is an improving economy with a good human rights record now and a good record as far as migrants are concerned. So it would be a natural fit as far as this is concerned. Denmark are looking at a very similar scheme, so it's not just us looking at Rwanda as a potential partner in this respect. So I think it would be wrong simply to say to use the historical comparison you have as a reason to just abandon ship and just not deal with the problem. We have to deal with this problem.
So will those that we send to Rwanda be subject to UK or Rwandan law?
That's part of the announcement later on today. I'm not going to prejudge what the Home Sec, as we heard on that report, Home Sec and the PM are going to say later on. It's quite a complex memorandum of understanding. Okay. We're looking at, I think the numbers for last year were 28,000 people coming across the channel, attempted to come across the channel. Vast majority of those were economic migrants. Vast majority of those were men. And those are the numbers we're looking.
Let me ask you some of the questions.
Yes, of course.
Otherwise, we'll be here all day. Are there just men that we're sending?
Say again?
Are we just sending men? Or
yes, I think, again, I need to be a little careful about spelling out the detail. There are some sensitivities around that. But, yeah, the vast majority of the issues we're talking about will be for male economic migrants. Yeah,
OK, and will they be adult males?
Yes.
OK. How do we determine somebody who doesn't have papers whether they're an adult or not?
Well, that's, as I say, that's what the Home Sec is going to be spelling out later on today. So I think I think we just need to be careful. I mean, it's tempting.
When they get to Dover, will they go straight to Heathrow and straight on the plane, or will we process them?
Again, there has to be, as ever, in the conversations you and I have had about this over the years, inevitably there is a bit of bureaucracy around this to make sure that the process is above all fair. And a lot of this is about fairness. It's not about sort of unnecessary bureaucracy. It's about fairness.
OK.
Yeah, go on.
In that, will children be sent to Rwanda?
No.
Male boys?
No. I keep going back to the same comment, so I need to be a little bit careful about spelling out each and every detail. But the principle is no. So this is about male economic migrants in the main. There is a different set of issues with women and children and refugees and asylum seekers.
What will happen to the women?
Well, that's going to be much more akin to what we do at the moment, which is looking after and safeguarding their interests in the UK. So that's to a great extent. Priti Patel will expand on it. To a great extent, that's not going to alter massively. But what we are going to see.
How much will it cost?
Well, at the moment, it costs about 1.5 billion.
How much will the Rwanda arm?
About £120 million is the estimated cost of this particular arrangement. But again, that's a figure which will alter depending on whether the scheme works or not. But of course, part of this is about deterring the criminal gangs as seeing the UK as a destination which they can exploit or exploit the people that they are
not sure how it's going
trafficking.
To deter. How does it deter the criminal gangs? How does it deter the criminal gangs?
Well,
because they're not the ones that are being sent to Rwanda, are they?
No, but the criminal gangs are exploiting vulnerable people by persuading them to part with vast sums of money on some vague promise that they get them to the UK where all of their dreams will be fulfilled, and that's where the exploitation is happening. And we have to break up. We have to break up.
Yeah, okay.
We have to break up that business model.
Yeah, okay. You've made that point.
I can understand why you're challenging.
Minister, you do give me very lengthy answers.
Well, yeah, exactly.
We only have a limited amount of time. And
you asked me a really important question about a business model. But
you're telling me you can't give me the details. So are they not just going to overload the boats with vulnerable women and children?
That is precisely what this whole scheme is designed to deter. And that's precisely why we want to work with the charitable sector, with the Refugee Council, with others, to ensure that does not happen. That is exactly the problem we have at the moment. That is why we are tackling this problem. And for years, you have rightly been holding us to account about this. You've rightly been telling us that something needs to be done. This is something. This has taken 9 months of careful negotiation with the Rwandan government. This is going to have the opportunity of breaking up the criminal gangs, disincentivising exploitable people, safeguarding the interests of people who have risked everything to go on this journey. That is what this proposal is.
Money is as good from a woman as it is from a man. So
that's why it's distinguished between male economic migrants.
Yeah, but they'll overload the boats with women then, won't they?
No.
Why not?
No, that's precisely because of the process as it is.
How do you know they won't?
Well, with great respect, you are suggesting that will be the case.
What I'm saying is it's not going to put off these people smugglers.
This is designed to have precisely the opposite effect. It is about breaking up criminal gangs who so far have been able to exploit vulnerable people in that process.
Why are we calling it processing when they actually will never... Why are we calling it processing to go to Rwanda to be processed when they're never going to come back to the UK? We're exporting them, aren't we?
Which other word would you choose to use when we're trying to safeguard people's interests? We are trying to make sure that actually the manner in which they have been previously exploited comes down. This is meant to be about being able to distinguish between economic migrants, refugees and asylum seekers. Try to make sure that people end up in a safe place with a reasonable future. Okay. That is something I would imagine we could join in some form of agreement. OK,
where the president's been accused of human rights abuses. Let's move on to Partygate. Last time you were here, you said that the world had moved on from Partygate. Doesn't look as though it has.
I don't think I put it quite like that.
Yeah, you did. That's exactly what you said.
Well, I think I said at the time it probably wasn't actually the end of the matter. This is an ongoing live police inquiry with Sue Gray's report still yet to be published. So I think suggesting that the whole thing is over is probably misrepresenting what I said at the time.
But the world has moved on from Partygate.
Well, I think what I was describing is the attitude of my own constituents in West Wales, which were very clear about this, which they wanted an apology, they wanted contrition, they wanted some kind of guarantee, if one can provide that sort of guarantee, that this sort of thing wouldn't happen again. And I said, I think by a substantial majority, probably 3-1 or 4-1, most people wanted that outcome rather than necessarily anybody involved with any of these incidents to lose their job as well, and that people were, and I believe this to be the case, rightly focusing on the biggest humanitarian crisis in 1945 in Ukraine. And I think I made the point that I don't think on balance that it is in the national interest or international interest or Ukraine interest to have a noisy and loud leadership contest whilst we're trying to lead the international response to Ukraine. That happens to be my view. It seems to be shared by a majority of people I speak to.
Let me ask you this then. YouGov poll suggesting otherwise. 75% say that the Prime Minister knowingly lied, and 55% among 2019 Conservative voters say that he lied and that he should go.
Well, you wouldn't be surprised if I'm going to disagree with that. And let me just explain why. Back in June 2020, Steve Swinford, a colleague of yours, wrote a story in The Times in which he described that Downing Street gathering where Boris Johnson had a birthday cake, Rishi Sunak came into the room, they sang Happy Birthday, the event for which they have now both been fined. At that time, written in the paper in June 2020, OK? Not a single person, you, the Metropolitan Police, opposition members of Parliament, observers, commentators, the news desk at the Times, not a single person at that time thought that that was anything remarkable about that story. Not a single one.
Minister, come on. He's been fined for going to the party. He's overseen 50 separate breaches of the law. He's the first Prime Minister in 300 years to be found guilty of an offence. And he's had to pay, if I may, because you do go on, just let me finish my question, if I may. As a result, you know, he's overseen the law being broken 50 times. He has lied to Parliament. Do you think he has morals?
Your suggestion that he lied to Parliament, or deliberately lied to Parliament,
however you want to frame it,
do you seriously think that Downing Street would have told Steve Swinford, one of the most experienced journalists in the world, do you seriously think they would have told him about an event in the belief that they were bending the rules or they were attempting to mislead Parliament? It subsequently turned out...
So are you saying he didn't mislead Parliament?
It subsequently
Are you saying he didn't mislead Parliament? Because our understanding is that he's going to go back to Parliament next week to say, I'm sorry if I misled you, but I did it by mistake. So...
There is, I mean, I know it always makes everybody frustrated when say, there's a difference between misleading and deliberately misleading. We had all of that with Tony Blair in the Iraq War, if you remember, the weapons of mass destruction.
He didn't break the law while he was in power.
And the suggestion was at the time, that he didn't break the law when he was in power. It's that he had misled Parliament. That was the suggestion. And it was the argument was all around whether it was deliberate or whether it was accidental.
The Prime Minister broke the law. Do you think he is an honourable man?
But the fact is, do you seriously think... Let me ask a question if I can. Do you seriously...
No, that's not how this works. I ask the question.
Do you seriously think, though, does anybody seriously think that Downing Street would have given a story about an event in the Cabinet Room, which now the PM and the Chancellor have been from it? Do you think that they would have done that if they thought that event or any in the immediate vicinity that would have been...
Yes, I do.
So do you think that they would have actually done that?
Yes, I do.
And then that qualifies as some kind of deliberate attempt to flag them. And why didn't at the time then? If that was the case, and this story...
I don't know where you're going.
This is unbelievable. I'll tell you where I'm going. When that story was published, not a single person put their hand up and said, that is a breach of COVID regulations.
Since then, it's become apparent that the Prime Minister has overseen 50 breaches of the law being broken in Downing Street.
I don't know where you got 50 from, but
because 50 notices have already been issued. So 50 times somebody has broken the law in Downing Street.
You know more about this than me.
It was a statement from the Metropolitan Police.
Well, as I say, you know more about this than me. I'm not going to speculate.
It's an actual fact.
But we can't, seriously, we can't speculate about it. You tempted me last week, and I probably went too far into the sort of speculation state. But we can't speculate about an inquiry which is incomplete. You would be the first to criticise me if we were trying to second-guess what the outcome is.
I'm just asking you about 50 times when the law's been broken that this Prime Minister's overseen it, and you still think he is
But I'll tell you what,
We're out of time.
Can I repeat what I said?
Can
I repeat what I said last week? Which is, nobody's... I don't want to excuse or justify. And, I mean, I am as sort of appalled by all of this as anybody else. It's not about trying to say that this was all fine or it didn't happen. Actually, we've all had... I mean, I'm a member of the government. I have to take my fair share of the blame on this. We all have to hold our hands up. Yes, it was a misjudgment. Yes, I wish dearly that it could have all been done differently. But the fact is that it wasn't. And the fact is, you asked my opinion. My opinion is people who get a fixed penalty notice should not automatically, just because they're in public life, also expect to be sacked at the same time. That is my view. It's probably on the more liberal end of the scale, but that is my view. OK, one wonders what will happen if he gets more than one. I'm sure you'll come back and talk to us, but we are massively out of time. I'm very tempted.
Get me in trouble. Yeah, look forward to seeing you very soon. Thank you, Minister. Thanks a lot. Enjoy Easter.